Hello and welcome to Featured Flights. I'm your host, Darren Varel. This show is about art and how it inspires, evolves, and changes the lives of an audience as it moves through time. I'm not just interested in the work, but also the people who make it. Today, I'm speaking with Mike Retondo. Mike is a musician and podcast host and my close friend for many years. Mike, nice to have you on the show. And thanks for, pretty much almost screwing up the intro here.
Yeah, I didn't know you were so professional.
Yeah,
straight to it. I thought we were gonna chit chat for a minute. Be like, so how are we gonna do this?
Well, I know you do a podcast with my brother, so it's gonna be a little different than that. Just so
this one, it's like you know what you're doing.
Well, there's smoke and mirrors in every walk of life here, and I'm very good at it. Eric, not so much.
No, me, not so much.
Well, I'm glad you did this because I know we've been actually seeing a lot of each other lately, but it's rare that I get to ask you some questions and kind of dive into your artistic process, because usually we're just, screwing around and making jokes, and probably staying out too late.
Nailed my artistic process right there.
Okay, well then I guess we're done. Thanks a lot for joining.
Good podcast.
And yeah, I actually did, just to talk about yours for a second. I did listen to the Steve Connect episode yesterday on my walk, and the day before that, I finished the Dan Wade episode. So you guys have been pretty prolific lately. You've been releasing a lot of episodes, and it's good to see that.
Yeah, Eric's been I don't know. He's got a fire lit under his proverbial butt.
Yeah, well, I think it means he knows you're going to be on tour soon, and you better hurry up and get them all in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I'm going to have this conversation kind of prompted by some questions that I'm asking, and again, if you don't have an answer to them, no problem. We can skip through it. You can talk around it, but I like to have these questions prepared, so you kind of have something to dive into, and I think it's going to bring out some conversation that maybe listeners would be interested in hearing about through your experiences in art. So without further ado, wow, and your camera, by the way, looks awesome. It's like moving, and yeah. It moves with you.
Yeah, I hired a guy to come and hold the camera. And
oh, gotcha. So Higginson's back there moving it around. Okay, gotcha. Hey, we all help each other out, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mike, you own a few pieces of my art, and we've even collaborated on a few pieces together. Could you explain a couple of the pieces that you own that you've purchased from me, and what moved you to own those pieces?
Good question. Let's see. There's the house. What's up with that house?
Well, you tell me. That's why
I just looked at it and bought it, dude.
It was on sale. Let's just say that, right?
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's a house with some history behind it that I'm not properly equipped to go into.
Cool. Well, it can take on many lives once it leaves an artist's control. And
I'll tell you what,
that's the thing, is like, I did paint it for a reason, because of a lot of things that I love about it. But I think you purchased it because it spoke to you in some way.
It looks damn good on my wall. I'll tell you that much. You should have seen the wall before it. It was just awful. And now you walk in the room and it's like, wow, your whole day is like changed.
Okay, well, that's the question. So has anybody been, around it? Has anybody commented on it? Family or otherwise, who's come over to visit?
Obviously Jen loves it. My kids, I thought maybe would be creeped out about it, but no, they're into it. They like it.
So anybody who doesn't know the piece that Mike's talking about, there's a street over here in Los Angeles called, I think it's called Carroll Avenue. And there's a bunch of old, like, Victorian type homes on that street. They've used those homes for tons of things in film and television, but the most notable one, of the one that I painted, was used in Thriller. And so it's like kind of exactly in the same like position it's been since the 80s. I don't think any work's been done to it, but these are all like historic homes. So they're not allowed to really be, there's probably a lot of rules about like, rehabbing it or whatever. Yeah. So that street is kind of right out of like history. And I went and visited there. They even have like a little street off to the side that has a little CBGB's like awning that you could take photos of. It almost looks like you're in New York. It's kind of cool.
Nice.
But I was kind of inspired by it when I went there. And then I painted that house sort of around the Halloween time. You guys actually have a few pieces that are more themed, like in the spooky realm, you know?
Yeah, I don't know how that worked out that way, but because I'm
Yeah.
not really like a spooky guy most of the time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You like
Although
horror movies and stuff like that, though, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of my multi-facets, I guess.
Well, okay, so that's one piece that you own, and then we've also collaborated on a few pieces. You know, I was going to say that I don't know, our relationship is kind of taking on certain things where it's like when it moves you to do something, we just do it. You know, we don't really
Yeah,
think about it too much, but it also it infuses your life and who you are into that art, because those pieces I would have never created, you know, if it wasn't you. And that's like the cool thing about collaboration. Sometimes I think these days people think about collaboration in terms of like how I can reach this audience or how I can make more money this way, which is, you know, of course, part of the game. But I think the coolest part about it that maybe gets overlooked is that you can infuse somebody else's tastes and thoughts and perspectives, and kind of open up your world of creativity more than you would have ever done before.
right.
Yeah. That's actually a question I'm going to ask about collaboration in a minute. So let's keep on moving through. And I think that'll spark a couple other questions that I've got. So you said Jen loves the work that you have. It looks like you have a bunch of art behind you. Where are you located right now? What is that sort of your den area?
No, this is my studio.
Okay. Talk about
So,
that a little bit.
well, here I am, and this is where nothing gets done. And
Are you sure? I mean, it looks like you have a lot of things that could
I
create.
hang up artwork.
Yeah.
I don't really create anything. Like that was the plan, is to create here, and so far, nothing. Although,
Okay.
you know, Tom Higginson did shoot a couple videos here, which was cool.
Okay. Well, so you've opened up, you know, collaboration by just purchasing the place, it
Yeah.
sounds like. Um, has like art in general inspired your life? Can you think of an instance where something you've seen has sparked, I don't know, maybe something you've written or created?
Hmm. Man, that's a tough question.
I mean, it probably
I think,
happens every day, but we don't really think about it, right?
yeah, that's kind of where I'm headed in my brain, is like, you know, art is all around you, and things that aren't even meant to be art can be interpreted, you know, as art. Things that are meant to be art can, you know, be the opposite, where you're like, nah, it doesn't do anything for me. And
Yeah,
it's all
this
part
may
of the, you know, being like going through life, just having experiences and emotions and observing, listening, all that stuff. You know, it's all, art is part of life. They're intertwined like this.
well, that maybe makes me think of one thing that I always love to goose you about, and maybe our listeners would find interesting. Um, so Mike and I did collaborate on a few pieces, and one of them, I had the idea to put together based on a story that Mike told me. So as we're talking about being inspired by great things in the world and
Yeah.
everything, there's this story of, so anyone who doesn't know, Mike is also the bass player of the Plain White T's, who tour a lot. So they get to go and experience a lot of cool things on anytime they have a free moment. They could go see some wonder of the world, right? Just depending on where you are in the world. So they were in the area where Stonehenge is. And the funny part about this story is that everybody was excited to see Stonehenge, and Mike was just, I'm just going to sleep here, you know. And they're like, wait, he's right there. Do you want to get out and see Stonehenge? And I think your classic line was, well, it's just a bunch of rocks. Isn't that right?
That's pretty accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. So we made a piece of art together, and it says Stonehenge, just a bunch, just a couple of rocks.
See, that was I don't know. My whole thing with that, I was asleep and, you know, pretty drunk and / hungover, right in the transition period between drunk and hungover, back when I drank. And B, my whole point with that is like, yeah, Stonehenge, it's cool. I mean, it's obviously like a, you know, literal monumental achievement of human engineering, whatever. But every single day, you walk by things that are also like amazing, astounding, incredible that they, feats of engineering, like, holy crap, look at this bridge. It's amazing, stuff like that.
So why
Buildings.
Stonehenge? Why can't you just say that about Sears Tower or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or not even that, something like an overpass. Any single overpass is more impressive in a way than Stonehenge,
I love that because it also is sort of, I mean, there's a lot packed into that. Cause like, as you're talking, so there's a two-part question. One, yes, I believe that. So sometimes you could just be on a walk, and if you're really present and like, being in tune with what you're doing, you can notice even like a leaf on a tree and think, oh my God, this is like the most incredible thing in the world. But you kind of have to be open to that. You have to be open to saying, okay, it's not just a bridge. There's a bunch of people that thought about this so that people wouldn't die when they cross over it and everything, but a lot of people take it for granted, I think is what you're saying, right?
Right. Like you as an individual human being, could you go build a bridge right now?
Right. No.
Right. Could you build Stonehenge?
Well, I suppose, yeah.
Maybe
right now,
kind of tough, but maybe,
Yeah, as long as you have something that can move the rock, sure, yeah.
Yeah, but then you got to figure that out,
Yeah.
They're both incredible achievements, right? That take a lot of collaboration, a lot of thought, a lot of ingenuity. And I don't, I was hungover. I want to get out of my bunk. Sleep. Yeah. It's like, fuck off.
Whenever I think about things,
bunch of fucking rocks.
Well, every time I think about things that can't be done, I think about flight, and then I think, well, we figured out a way to get into like a small tube and fly through the air. Like anything's possible if that's possible.
Yeah.
Okay. So one other thing about that, can I ask, if you had been sober, Mike, that is today, would you have gotten out of the car and seen Stonehenge?
See, I wouldn't go out of my way to see it. Like, I've seen photos, videos. To be there, I don't know. I feel like people being there do more harm to it than good. And
well, I mean, and now they preserve it probably a little bit more. And
yeah, maybe
trying to keep it around,
But that's did it get like splattered with orange paint? Was that Stonehenge? They got that thing too?
I don't know. Most art is being splattered with tomato soup or whatever these days, just because of activism. So maybe.
But I just picture people putting out cigars on the stone and carving their initials in and stuff like that, which, is also part of human history.
Right.
But, you have this thing you want to preserve. It's kind of whatever.
Well, that's kind of the point of street art too, right? Like, as you create something in the world, and it's like, well, that's probably not going to live forever because it's so fleeting. The elements can hit it. Somebody can graffiti over it, which is kind of like the coolest part about street art, in my opinion, is that it doesn't stick with you. It's like, enjoy it while it's here and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Unless you draw a big dick on,
right, but
the side of a building, and
the thing
is probably spray painted over in a second. But
if you find, if Stonehenge has been there since the age of the Druids, somebody in Roman times carved a dick onto it. Today, that dick would be like, oh, we need to preserve that. That's a part of history. So you leave the dick alone. Well, it's not. So, but if somebody,
leave the dick alone in general. Sometimes,
sometimes,
yeah,
all depends.
Yeah,
but if some kid today carved a dick into Stonehenge, you'd be like, throw that kid in jail. He's destroying, history. But then 2,000 years from now, 1,000, whatever, somebody's going to be like, circa 2025. Look at that, that graffiti that kid did. Yeah. Like, leave it alone. Don't touch that dick.
Yeah, I mean, history has a way of telling you what art is, I guess,
Right.
Okay, well...
And that's kind of,
yeah,
it's all a matter of context. And my point with Stonehenge, too, was like, if somebody from 1,000 years in the future traveled back in time and, who knows what they are going to have then, but what would they look at in our world right now and be like, wow, those people made this?
Well,
it's incredible.
That's precisely why I love going to museums, because I look at a painting and I think, there's, especially at the Art Institute, there's just so much things over there in Chicago that I'd go in there every weekend because I live close by, and I'd look at the inside the paintings and think like this was a moment in time, and the waves, the water, the wind, like never to be reproduced again. And this is a painting from the 1800s. That blows my mind. The
Yeah,
passage of time, I guess, is more what that's about.
sure. But my whole thing is there's waves going on today. There's a breeze going on today that's never going to be the same breeze that anyone's ever going to feel again.
Are you hearing that, by the way?
No.
Okay, good. Just people working on the apartment now. I didn't mean to cut you off, but Jesus.
I thought you were slowly passing gas, and it was a trailer.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't know. Just fucking, there's, live in the moment, appreciate what's around you. Fuck Stonehenge. But also, maybe I should have lived in that moment because I was there. But, for me, that my moment was like being in my bunk. Yeah. And that's the only place I wanted to be, Well,
it's a great conversation to have. I mean, literally everybody would look at you and say, how could you not do Stonehenge? You were right there. All you had to do was open up the goddamn door and walk out. And you have like a pretty good case for why that doesn't matter.
I peeked out the window and I saw like a chain link fence. And I was like, you know what? Fuck this.
They don't want you to go in anyway.
Yeah, that was as far as I went. But it did lead to a great piece of art being created by you.
Well, there you go. So that was my question. Can you describe a time, if any, that art has inspired your life? I did. We made it. That piece exists. And
that was more life-inspiring art,
too. Actually, now what's that?
That was backwards. That was life-inspiring art.
Oh, life-inspiring art. Yeah.
Art inspiring life.
Art being inspired by life.
Yeah. Exactly.
Let me see. Oh, so as I mentioned, we've collaborated on some art and we've just talked about it. But we also perform in a band together, don't we, Mike?
Two bands.
Yeah, two bands. And that's what I was about to say. So a brand new Scissor song was released last year and you were part of that. And just recently we performed at the Hotel Cafe in Los Angeles. So I want to know.
With TLB.
With TLB, yes. Both bands kind of semi hobby at times, you could say, because these days we don't do it as seriously as we would have as we were teenagers, because we just don't have the time. And you're in a band and I do my art, but I love it, and I think you do too. We talk about it all the time. There's so much low stakes, but it's also just like how it was when we were kids, when we performed for fun. And so that's my the crux of the question is what it's like to collaborate. And you can talk about collaborating with the T's if you want, with the members there, or you could talk about what it's like performing or collaborating with me specifically and these bands that we just mentioned.
For me, it's really hard for me. I don't know why. It always kind of has been to collaborate starting from nothing. It's almost impossible. And I maybe it's my ADHD, maybe it's my, who the hell knows? If we're starting from nothing and sitting down and saying, okay, let's get an idea going for something, my brain checks out. I struggle. If somebody has something just like a, little seedling of an idea, then I'm like, all right, I'm in, let's go. If I'm going to create a little seedling of an idea, then I need to be completely isolated from the world.
Like no phones around, or
just no, where I know nobody's gonna walk in the room or call me or
distractions,
need me for something, or distract me. So although once that little seedling of an idea is there, then I'm great. If you give me like a finished product, I can edit the shit out of it
or make it better, maybe.
Yeah, I'll put my betterness all over it.
Yeah, do you ever see the movie A Phantom Thread by any chance?
No, it's on my list.
Okay, well, you have Criterion now, so it's on Criterion. But I will say there's
the next movie I'm going to watch.
Oh, no shit, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, this isn't ruining anything, but
let's reschedule this. I'll watch it.
Yeah, we'll watch it after. This isn't ruining anything, but there's a scene about somebody comes into the room when he's creating, and he's pissed. And he's like, kind of loses it. And the person's like, okay, I'll leave or whatever. He's like, yes, but the interruption stays. Like you can leave the room, but the interruption stays here. And that kind of reminds me of what you were just talking about.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that 100%.
Yeah, so being able to collaborate, and I understand that, sometimes when you're in a band, I think, let's say Tom and I, right? For We talked about this on your podcast actually about how, like, you have a leader, right? It's usually the lead singer is the person who can continue to make the band go over time or whatever, because they just have the drive, or it could be somebody else, but most of the time it's the lead singer. And I think with Tom and I, we have that where we can kind of take and get that thing moving. It's I don't know, maybe that's a business thing more than it is even like a music thing, because musicians are great. Like that's a secret too, is that, like, you have to like foster art and creativity and artists in general. Cause a lot of, like, let's just talk about Dave Terrio. Like, I love Dave and I think he's the best artist of our group, our friends group
Of our time, some would say.
that?
Best artist of our time. Well,
Yeah.
Our time.
Well, he's
Not-
insane. And then there's no
Yeah.
doubt about that. But, like, again, I always feel like with Dave, if he had somebody that was just like a manager, like, he'd be the greatest selling artist of all time. But, like, I don't think Dave's interested.
Yeah. Well, that's got nothing to do with art.
No, of course. Yeah.
Right? It's
Right.
kind of,
He creates behind the scenes and nobody's ever seen it.
yeah. Back to collaborating though. Part of it is, the creative process oftentimes involves just nothing but bad ideas, right? Which is, that's important. It's important for you to have bad ideas and to, decide what's good, what's bad, what you like, what you don't. When there's more than one person in the room, for me anyway, I guess you need to have like a really special relationship with somebody to be able to tell them, like, hey, that's a real piece of shit idea. Whereas yourself, you can create something, look at it and be like, yeah, fuck, that's fucking awful. What was I thinking? Or that's genius. I need to, work on that more or whatever. When more than one person's in the room, or vice versa, hearing somebody else shut down your idea, it's, it feels different coming from somebody else. Like, well, maybe I'm terrible, or maybe they're wrong, or, there's a lot of just thought that comes from that. Whereas for me anyway, starting in a room isolated alone and coming up with, 100, 1,000 just really bad ideas, but that one just kind of rises to the top, that part of the process, I don't know. I like being alone. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, of course. And I think the idea of, again, having somebody that you trust, I think is coming out of that the most, or members, let's say, of the band, because even at Scissors thing, like, Dave back in the day would have been so difficult to work with as far as like the creative, and he kind of like went with the flow on this last song. I was like, okay, I think the song's good. You just do what you want to do. And for me, that was a breath of fresh air, because, like, also sometimes you have to prove yourself, a little bit, that, like, okay, like Tom, for instance, he's written hit songs, and he's very good. And so a lot of times that's the strength to me in TLB, is that I can kind of back up a little bit and be like, okay, no, like, this guy is better than me at a lot of these things. And so, like, I don't feel like I have to just be the guy that's gung ho all the time. And also just observing the Plain White T's over time, as I have just from being your friends, I can see you guys, and it's almost like, it almost brings a smile to my face, because I want to be a part of that. And I'm talking about the understanding of bad ideas, like you said, like, that you're not an idiot for thinking of that. Maybe you were when you were 19, 20, 21, 22, as you guys were going through, but, like, now everybody says, no, we need those bad ideas. But at first, maybe it's just me, you kind of like look down on people or something, or you think like, oh, you're not, I'm not going to listen to you because you don't get it or something. No one really listens to those bad ideas when you're younger.
Right.
Or maybe doesn't know they're bad ideas, or the difference maybe.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, in the T's, do you feel like that has gotten better?
Yeah. Tom is really good about hearing me tell him, like, this sucks, or, shutting down something that he worked hard on, which, that's one of his strengths that not many people have. I don't know how he's held it together for so long, because it's not just me. There's the rest of the guys. He'll turn in a bunch of demos, and we'll be like, yeah, this one not so much. And he's like, oh, really? Like, I worked so hard on this. Like, he's really into it. But
and he could say to you, well, where's your fucking demo?
Right.
Fuck you. Yeah,
yes, exactly. But I don't know. When I do turn something in, it, for me, first of all, I haven't turned in like a finished song, maybe ever, since my only one. Or
was that finished when you
yeah, it was finished and different. That was a Tone Deaf George song that had a different chorus. Tom loved the song. He wanted to make it into a T song. I said, well, yeah, okay, sure, let's go. He's like, I don't know about the chorus though, which I liked the chorus, but I agreed with him. It could have been stronger. So we sat down in Lauren Israel's apartment. Our A&R guy, no, not our A&R guy. He was an
manager
A&R
though
guy.
at the time.
He was our manager. Anyway, with a history of A&R, which helped us big time because he knew a lot of good stuff, a lot of good info from that guy. But anyway, sat down in about 5 minutes in his apartment with an acoustic guitar, knocked out the chorus. We said, yeah, that's good. Cool.
Yeah.
That was it. But a song like Land of the Living, which is a collaboration between me and Dave Tirio, that one I kind of just, was doing a bunch of stuff one day, came up with that guitar riff, and I would, among a sea of ideas, I was like, wow, there's something special about that one. That's cool. That deserves, to be worked on a little bit. So I laid down like a basic track and the like the bass line and the verses, and sent it around, to the band. Said, hey guys, here, what do you think? And then Dave just wrote the song over the track. Basically, all the melodies, all the lyrics, it's all Dave Tirio. And that, is an example of me being isolated from the world, creating my little thing, and then saying, okay, this is as far as I'm going to go with it for right now, but here you go, let's collaborate. And then I think it turned out great.
Yeah, that's cool. Sometimes it's funny. Like, I think about this with movies. I have that movie podcast, Remainders, and we talk a lot about like, will this movie stand the test of time? Especially when we talk about newer movies, and how will it age? And that's what I think about Land of the Living at first. And maybe for a lot of Tease fans who are used to one thing, that was a different injection of style, let's say. And I think, at first it may have been, even to me, who's used to like a certain pop punk, like pop rock, whatever style. It's not that song isn't, it's just a little bit more artful. And you can see over time I think that song is going to emerge as one of the strongest Tease songs, or at least the most interesting that will be talked about, instead of just maybe, I'm trying to make a hit song or something. Like, that's what you go into it with.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely not a hit, and maybe one that people forget about. But every time it kind of comes on or whatever.
Yeah.
People are like, oh yeah, oh wow, I really like that song. So
yeah,
that's
great
enough
video
for me.
too.
Yeah,
great video
very cool
too.
video.
Okay, cool. So that's great. I love talking about the collaboration. We also had a great time at the Hotel Cafe. But also, as we do this and they have to travel a lot more, and we have daily lives and stuff like that, it can be a little bit difficult to get through that first like couple days of like, okay, we're super happy to see each other. We went out, we had a nice meal. Now, like, we got to do the work, and it's like, oh yeah, we got to drive around. We got to drive an hour from Malibu out to like blah, blah practice space. And then you can kind of get on each other's nerves, but it doesn't have anything to do with the music or anything. It's more just about like trying to get it done. I think that's my challenge these days with like these things. It's like, how do we find ways to get it done? If anybody sees a musician, they're like, man, he used to play all the time, or he or she used to play all the time, and why don't they do that anymore? It's like, well, it's fucking hard work, and it doesn't always pay the bills. So there's something else I'm doing right now that's paying the bills. And then, I listen to your podcast and I hear people talk about it all the time, because a lot of times, correct me if I'm wrong, you focus a lot on musicians from our scene that grew up with the Tees and everybody. With different amounts of success in terms of financially, in terms of popularity. And when you hear people talk, it's like, okay, now they're at the age, it's like they still have that. They love to create, but they've let it go, or they let this happen. And it's interesting in your podcast to hear them talk about how they find ways to continue to do it or not. Or if they look at it and say, I saw this quote, and I have no clue if it's AI generated or real these days, because who knows, but something from Danzig where he's like, yeah, maybe the only thing I would do now is do a new Misfits song because I know it would make money. And he's like just being serious about it, right? That makes sense. It's like, I don't fucking want to make a record where I have to go pay the engineer. I got to pay the promotion. I got to pay the social media people these days. It's like, at the end of the day, nobody makes anything, you know? That model, unfortunately, is kind of like a bummer. And so, yeah, you don't blame artists for saying, I don't know if I really even just want to do this anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think coming up, you know, in the scene, as it were, back in the day with all of our friends, you know, local bands and stuff, it's interesting to kind of think about, you know, what was everybody's motivation back then? Because it was hard work then, just like it is now. We had more freedom because, you know, mom and dad were paying the bills and stuff like that. But, you know, what was our motivation to like get together, you know, find people that can play instruments and get together and write songs and then lug all your equipment to some, you know, somebody's garage or somebody's backyard or whatever, church basement. So it is interesting to talk to people, you know, that were there with us and see like, you know, what it was like for them.
Yeah.
But looking back at it, you know, we were all being creative. We were all just doing this like every weekend, basically. It's like, why? Yeah. What was our motivation?
Maybe the reason to get back to that for most of the people, at least what I'm hearing through the grapevine, is it's just like, it's a release. I mean, creativity is a place to not feel anxiety, not to feel depressed, you know, and that's why you also look at it as like those days were easier for a lot of the reasons you just stated. Yeah, mom and dad might have been paying the bills and different things like that, but you also forget that this creative outlet made you feel like you were seen. It made you feel like you could talk about things that are hard to talk about, and for us, that's an addiction, you know.
Yeah.
One way or the other.
You know, there might have been kind of a little bit of competitive element to it. I don't know if you felt that.
Oh yeah.
But you know, you'd play shows with bands and be like, man, we're so much better than those guys. Like, you know, or you'd play a show with a band that was kind of next level. And you'd be like, oh shit, you know, it's time to step up our game. And, you know, if we want to run with the big boys, so this, you know, whatever, we gotta write better songs.
That's the best part
tune
about
our
being
guitars, you know, stuff like that.
Because now you look at somebody who's might be better than you or whatever on Instagram, and you all of a sudden like go drink for days in a corner because you're so like, I'm never gonna do this, you know. It actually stunts your motivation to continue to go out, because like that is like I always called it healthy competition, you know. I loved playing with bands that were better than us because I was like, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna write one even fucking better, you know.
Yeah.
So
you also shouldn't compare yourself to anybody.
Well, no, but I think
as far as like
these days, it's harder to do that, not to compare yourself to people, because you see it all the time on social media, you know?
Yeah.
We didn't really have that back when we were growing up. So the way that we were talking, you know, you'd see people out so to go one further, and not just for us, our perspective, and I don't mean to talk for her because she's not here, but you know, my girlfriend, Marianne, she grew up watching our bands, which is kind of an amazing thing. A lot of people in my life don't know anything about the first bands I was in, Backdrop or even the Scissors now, you know? So you talk to them and you meet new people and say, yeah, it's a bands, you know, back in the day, whatever. She knows all about it. And a lot of times when we talk, and we have talks about this a lot, and she'd be talking about times in her life where what she wanted was that community, like-minded people to come and rally around watching music and people who are expressing themselves, because there's something that draws you to that. It makes you feel like, oh, I can escape something in my life that's happening that isn't, that might be challenging or that might not be so comfortable, but then you can go around on a Saturday night and be around people who might be experiencing the same thing, or they're not even talking about any of those challenges. They're just having fun, you know?
Yeah.
And that's another problem, I think, with the world today is that a lot of people don't go to these things. They don't go and experience people and a community. And yes, it's good to be alone, but at the same time, you got to go out and
I think
talk with people.
That's the part that's missing is, being in the room with people and being able, if you're musicians, whatever, sure, compare yourself, whatever, but you can talk to that person. You can interact with them. You can watch them up close. Say, hey, how did you do that? Or you can teach them something. Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff, watching, people shredding on guitar or painting, whatever. Like, that's not real in a sense. Because, first of all, a lot of shit can be faked. Second of all, you're looking at a screen. You're not there, right?
Somebody might say, oh yeah, I filmed that 8 times until I finally got the right paint stroke or until I finally got the right lick down,
Yeah, I don't know. It's like magic tricks at times with some of that stuff.
Yeah,
it's like you're more trying to figure out like, well, I didn't see the move, but I think this is the move. How did he do this? Or, but playing with local bands back in the day like we did, you interact with people. You say, hey, even early on, yo, dude, how come my kick drum, when I'm playing drums, slides all the way across the floor and yours is staying put? What did you do?
Put this brick in front of it, Yeah.
Or get some kid to sit in front of it. But you get experience, you interact, and then you can tell them something like, oh, here's how I do this or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Which is why I think we do this podcast too, is just to kind of have, if people listen to it, maybe they can get some idea of how to navigate a little differently through their thing. I just did I was out with Tom and Tim, and I just was filming some stuff, and I was like, hey, do you want to come along as a buddy and just like hang out? I'm like, sure, I got nothing going on. Filmed a little bit of that, and that helps me just continue to get better at what I'm doing, learn how to be on the road with people, learn how to navigate the challenges of how weird it is to be in close quarters when people are being creative. Granted, it's a little easier for me because I know you guys a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I'm always looking at it as a way to grow. And also then I was able to do on my Patreon, like, look what's in my bag. And now I remember when I first started doing this stuff, like, going out and capturing stuff. Well, I have a little bit of a good insight just to begin with, because I know what it's like to be a musician. I know what it's like to, try to get stuff to like sell your music to people. But at the end of the day, I don't know what it's like to get gear. And I don't know what it's, so I talked to Cal when I first started going out with you guys in 2018, and Cal was like, oh, you need something for low light if you're going to be in a place without a flash. Most places won't let you have flash. Okay, we talked about that. Then he's talking about, then you got to have this lens that goes, far enough away you can zoom in, and all of the shit that keeps on happening with technology. I mean, even what we're talking to each other on right now, this is all things you got to research. So I've done all that work, and then I can kind of do the South by Southwest thing. I come home and I can film all the stuff in my bag and be like, I wish I had this, that you guys could just soak up right now.
Yeah.
All the years of experience of me like researching it, and then here you go. But I also don't think you should give that away for free. Right. A lot of people these days are like, I spent all my whole life and I give all this stuff away for free, and now I'm, broke. It's like, well, it doesn't have to be that way, but you got to think a little smarter. And I don't mean to make this about money, but I'm just saying in general, it's kind of like, over the years, you learn a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, money makes the world go round.
Sure.
As they say.
But if you guys aren't successful, you can't hire me,
That's right.
That's the 1000% the thing that I had to learn over time. It's like, I could be mad about your success because inside I'm pissed that I don't have that success, and I want my band to be the biggest band in the world and have a hit song. And I can be on whatever radio station it is. Or I can look at it as like, I'm happy for these guys that they've done well. And guess what? As an artist, I get to do their album art. That's something a lot of people overlook, I think.
Yeah. For sure,
especially in music and art. Okay,
but I will say this: pay artists. Not you, Darren, but the people listening. Throw, because somebody has to, and who else should but the people enjoying their artwork, right?
Yeah. Well, I also think that in that statement, there's a lot to be said about like pay artists, but also find ways. Like I was just talking with a friend about, okay, you want me to do the album or the art for your show, but I like to offer like, yes, I can, and of course here's a fee for what I have to do. But did you guys think that you can make shirts out of that design, and did you think that you can make posters out of that design? Because literally, it won't be that much extra for you to create that, and what you could make back is like you could pay for the artist to do the work, and you could make some money on top of it. So instead of just saying pay artists and then it ends, look at ways that it could work for you to benefit you, instead of just like AI or whatever, which is fine, but not really tailored to.
It depends on how many fingers you want on a hand.
Yeah. I liked what you said the other day in your podcast about like one day, 25 years from now, people are going to look at it and it's going to be like a throwback to like the old AI generation. I love that, actually.
They're going to be going for that aesthetic on purpose.
Right. AI. Exactly. It's like nowadays, like when people go back to the MySpace era of like duck faces or something that was trending back then, it's like, it's cool again or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So talked about like some challenges as a young adult, and I think we've got that in like what we talked about. What are some challenges that you face now as an artist creating?
Back pain. Oh, as an artist creating.
Well, that could be it.
I was just going for old adult. What are some of my challenges as an old adult?
Yeah, well, let's say that some of the challenges that we talked about with creativity and writing and collaboration.
Time
coming up. Yeah,
time is a big thing. Finding the time to devote to yourself and to your art and creating is just tough when you have, you get older and you have more obligations, responsibilities, stuff like that. It's on the performing side of things, it's tough to leave for a month, leave my family behind, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So then when you try to bring in, okay, it's time to be creative, you got to find more time for that. It's like, well, I was out of town for a month, and these are all bullshit excuses. I could be writing songs in a hotel room. Tom does that. He's really good at that.
Yeah, I can't do that, but he is good at that.
Yeah. We all have our different, methods and needs and stuff like that. But, just setting aside time to be like, look, I'm creating. 90% of what I'm doing is just bullshit. Wanking off, not literally sometimes, like just coming up with whatever guitar riffs or little song ideas. Like I have so much stuff recorded that's just garbage that it's like, maybe I'll pursue it. Nah, not good enough. Not good enough to send around like I did with Land of the Living. To me, I think I'm my biggest critic.
Yeah, you got to filter it first, right?
Right. So, but the stuff that didn't make that cut for me, there's a lot of just bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Like me and you collaborating on the art. You said, okay, come up with some more fucking ideas. And what did I do? Not a damn thing.
Yeah, but at the same time, like the ones that you did do were really great because I could visually think of them,
Yeah.
So like sometimes it's just a saying. That's like why TLB I think is really good. I usually think of it as just a line. I heard you guys talk with maybe it was Steve. What's your process or whatever? Sometimes it's different for different artists or different projects, but for that one specifically, it's like, what's the title of this one? And it's always some kind of kitschy, fun, whatever, and then you can write it around that. So yeah.
Do you ever just like luck into an idea?
Oh yeah.
Where it's just out of nowhere. You're like, oh. That'd be good. And then it's like the most genius thing you've ever come up with.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes
those are really hard to catch,
Yeah, that's like what I rely on.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, like it's also about the follow through. Like those ideas do come to you sometimes. Like a lot of times it's in the shower. I don't know if you're like this, but I am. So many times I'm in the shower, and my mom actually explained this to me one time. When you're in the shower is the only time you're really truly alone, unless you bring bullshit in there.
Or
it's
friends.
like Well, yeah, but no, just truly alone by
Yeah,
yourself without any friends around. You can actually think clearly, and it's also relaxing, right? And
yeah,
then the problem is that those ideas to me come then, and I'm like, I got to get the fuck out of here. I got to go and catch that idea. I've heard David Lynch talk about that so much now that he's passed away, and people are always talking about catching those ideas, but you can't do anything with them if you don't foster them, and that I think is the trick.
yeah. And those are always the most genius ideas. The ones that are just inspired. I don't know. That you don't have to think about. They just come to you, right? In the shower, taking a crap, whatever it is. Which, by the way,
probably the way Higginson gets most of his ideas.
No, I think that whole thing, smartphones have killed the shitter idea because everyone's just on there scrolling.
That's true. Yeah. I don't know anybody that doesn't take their phone into the bathroom with them.
It's pretty gross to think about, but
yeah. Every time you shake somebody's hand or touch their phone or do whatever.
Well, their hand wiped their ass anyway. So hopefully they washed it. But the phone.
Yeah.
Think about that. Get a little hand sanitizer, put it on a napkin. Just do your phone every once in a while.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's people like you ever look inside your case when you open it up, you're like, what's this bullshit in here? Like, how did this happen,
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. So I'm loving this conversation. These
are the important things to talk about.
I was going to say, I think there's a little humor in here. There's a little reality in here. But a lot to take in from your perspective. Because I don't think we've talked this way in some of the ways it is to create. I know we have good conversations a lot, but I specifically wanted to know about your life as an artist. And okay, so there are some ways. Oh, you have something else to say?
Well, no, everyone has, a different process or processes, to create. So, you need to find what works for you or what doesn't work for you. Like I've never found anything that works for me. I struggle through life with everything.
Yeah. But we're right. It's kind of more so about what doesn't work for you and making sure you don't continue down that road.
Yeah. But I mean, it all depends. You worked as a commercial artist where you have to be just making stuff every day. Your output has to be, steady. Whereas me, I could just fart around through life and whatever. What comes, what doesn't. Every once in a while, I'll have an idea, or I'll tell somebody their idea is bad or good, or have an idea for their idea. But that's not going to work for everybody. Your process isn't going to work for everybody, But the end result is really what matters, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And listening to people's advice. Oh, you could be doing this a little bit differently, or, this helped me. Maybe it'll help you. Stuff like that. It's good to listen to.
Well, people a lot of times talk to me about, wow, you put out a lot of shit, or, you've done a lot. And it's like, I've never, and sometimes it could be a detriment to me, like Tom doesn't really try, at least in his mind, I don't think, try to put out anything. And that's why lately with some of the Million Miler stuff, I tell him, I'm like, what the fuck? I don't think this was something you would ever put out. Which I think sometimes gets influenced by social media, where it's like, I got to push out a lot of shit. And sometimes you lose the quality over the quantity. Not saying all the Million Miler stuff isn't great, because it is, but a few of the things I'm kind of like, why would you post that? Just like wait until you have something good. And he used to be really, like he would not even respond to me if I, give him a shitty demo. And like, that's how I knew it wasn't good in his eyes, But for me, a lot of times I like to create and then just leave it behind. And then it's out there in the world for whoever else to make their comments about it. But it's not up to me anymore. I'm on to the next thing. And that's my best way to create, because I just don't want to stop, And I a lot of people could get stuck on an idea or something. And, or, a lot of times I see when Eric works with One Life, see that those guys have had a song that they've rehashed 8,000 times, or there's a brand new song, brand new, that was an idea from 2002. It's like, okay, well, that's one way of going, but I just can't hold on to that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you have a lot of stuff that doesn't see the light of day, or does everything you start get finished?
Oh, 100%. That's what the Patreon's all about. There's a ton of demos and stuff like that that I'll put up. And,
Yeah.
because like I like certain things about, I won't put up crap, I remember when Johnny Cash died and I went to the museum and they have this console that he worked on with Rick Rubin. And they're like, inside this exists the last like 5 Johnny Cash songs. But Rick Rubin was like, they're not good enough to put out. So sometimes people shouldn't hear that. You're just, especially these days when you got like, I don't know, like when people die that are like artists that are really young, they're like releasing voice memos from their fucking phone. And it's like, okay, this is a money grab, at that point. So to your point, there is a ton of stuff that I don't put out, but I've gotten good about having a place for that to exist if people want more, I guess. Okay. How about you?
I'd say about 99.9% of anything I've ever done has never seen the light of day.
But does it exist somewhere? Is it there's a treasure trove somewhere?
Not really. There's
a vault.
There's probably old hard drives and that are all corrupted, stuff like that.
Yeah, no one will ever be able to access again. Well, that's okay, because as an artist, you don't need to document every single fucking thing.
Right. But I have a lot of like just unfinished, like, oh, this is, 15 seconds of something, and then I gave up on it or whatever, lunchtime.
I think ideas like that,
came back to it.
Like your Land of the Living idea, in my opinion, work better when you're a functioning band or a functioning entity. Because if you're not, and you're just the guys who fuck around.
I am not a functioning entity.
Well, but what I'm saying is it works in the Plain White T's, because it's like, okay, we're putting together a record and who's got some ideas. Now you guys are actually focused on them. If you're not, and you're going about your daily life, and we play a show at the Hotel Cafe once a year, and Eric sends me some bullshit that's like, one chorus or whatever. I'm like, okay, I'll throw it in the file for like when we make a record, but I'm not focused on it now because there's no immediate need for that.
Right. Yes. I think for me, the tease is probably the best thing. I mean, not even probably. The best thing that's ever happened to me as far as like, being a professional, creative person, whatever. Because, even like Tone Deaf George, Tom Higginson like forced us to record a CD, and like called me one day and said, "Hey Mike, I record, we're making a CD, come over here." The drums were already recorded. Like he kind of facilitated that whole thing. I'm really bad at stuff like that, or I have been historically.
Well, that's why I think like your manager almost is Tom Higginson, and in some ways is mine too. Not to give Tom too much credit, because we do our own shit too. But, like that's what I'm talking about with the Dave Terrio part of things. Like when you have somebody that's able to kind of mold your creativity, like nobody's listening to this and that's heard you play bass or anything, thinks that you are not very, very gifted at what you do, and a gifted songwriter as well. I mean, all of those Tone Deaf George songs are amazing, and My Only One is probably in my top 5 favorite Plain White T's songs of all time. You have talent beyond most people and even me, but again, you're even admitting it. You need somebody to sort of harness that and show you like a path for it, maybe.
Well, I think for me, I would like to think I do contribute a lot to our musical output in the studio, like whatever. I put my sauce on top of the stuff, right? If that makes sense.
Well, yeah.
But like having that role kind of exist and be an option for me was like, oh, this is what I need. It's like I struggle with, writing a song, but if you come to me with a song, I'll make it better, or different, more interesting, whatever it is.
I mean, in a way, if you look at the Plain White T's, you guys are all completely different. And but it works,
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. There's three more questions if you have the time. I'm enjoying this conversation, and I think listeners are going to love this too. So thanks for giving me your time. But if you have it, like, let's keep going. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So there's many ways to create, and sometimes the best stuff is done when no one was watching, as we've talked about. So talk a little bit about your creative outlets outside of music, and give us an example of something you've made that you're proud of. And I know there's an answer to this because I know you. So I'm going to let you say what you want to say, but then I want to talk about it too.
I've made two beautiful children. That's not what you thought I was going to say. It's not what I thought I was going to say. I like to, work on instruments. I built a bass. I took a Stratocaster guitar and hacked it up and got a bass neck. I made a Strat bass, basically.
Wow. Does it play well?
Yeah, it's cool. I almost brought it to the Hotel Cafe show. Yeah. But then that Mosrite copy that I bought at a Goodwill for $40 just screamed to me like that needed to be at that show.
I mean, dude, you heard the recording of that stuff.
Yeah, it sounded cool.
Great. Yeah.
But that thing was like just the biggest piece of shit. And it was hanging on my wall for like 5 years. And I had tried, I bought it, had like 2 strings on it. And there was a crack in the neck joint. And then the neck moved like this. The body would stay still. The neck did this. And it was like all over the place. So, I had to glue that up. And the pickups were all not secured. I had to redo the electronics. I did a bunch of shit to that thing. And got it good enough for the TLB show. And built a bass. I just made a pick guard for another bass that I also can't show you right now, but
yeah, sounds like that's something that gives you a lot of joy. I mean, it's cool too because of what Mike's talking about, even in the collaboration that we did. And that's why I asked Matt Allison to be part of that, because I love working with him. And that's an excuse for me to work with him, because it's like the scissor stuff is always what he's done. But when he brought up like what the bass was that he thought you used in the tone, that was also like maybe that's one of my favorite moments of the whole recording that I would have never expected. It's like something that you love, Matt loves just as much. And he was able to hear it and say, no, that's that bass or whatever,
Yeah. But I think that kind of stuff to me appeals to the problem solving, puzzle solving part of my brain, which allows me to be creative in some of the things, your choices along the way. Like, I have this thing. I think it should be more like this. Let's bring it there.
Or this would be perfect for this creative thing, which was TLB at the Hotel Cafe. Like, this is a Mosrite copy, like Ramones, and it'll be perfect and gritty and weird and cool to be part of TLB.
Yeah.
Okay. The one I wanted to say, if you don't mind, is that I love like the fucking cooking stuff. That's sometimes the cool thing as like a friend to like look at things that you do that you might not know are creative, but like I love to cook. And so when I do, I think a lot about life. Like, this thing grew out in the wild somewhere, this carrot someone pulled up from the ground, or, whatever that kind of stuff is. It really is part of the creative process. And then you create something with it that then energizes you to keep going through life. And I love like what was it called that you said, the masubi that you make or whatever?
Yeah.
Talk about that for a second.
That that's one of the one things I've made where I just kind of stick to a recipe.
Yeah.
Like, this is how it's made. That's how I make it. But usually with cooking, I'm very like just going around the kitchen like, ooh, what can I do? And
what do we have even, like,
yeah, and that sort of thing is fun. And I don't know. Like, I made tuna salad the other day, which I normally have like, kind of a standard thing I stick to, but then I'll open up cabinets and the fridge and, ooh, what would be good in this, and what would go well, with these flavors. And I found this like caramelized onion jam.
Wow.
Put some of that in the tuna salad. Holy fucking shit. It was so good. And,
Yeah.
just a little sprinkle of some kind of, herbs and spices thing I had. It was really good, but it's just me, I'll never make that again the same way.
Mm.
But every time I make something, it's like, what can I do?
Well, that's kind of like songwriting and collaboration. Same deal.
Yeah. But again,
you're looking for the ingredients to put together something really, truly remarkable.
yeah.
Sometimes it sucks, but
Yeah, exactly. But usually, it's really good, especially once you kind of know, okay, I know how this tastes, or I know what this sounds like, or I know what this looks like, any of that stuff. That's kind of my whole creative thing. It's easy for me to start with something, tuna salad, bass guitar that is kind of wonky, demo that somebody else started, and then boom, my creative process just goes from there, because I know, looking at this thing, this has great potential.
Yeah, a lot of times
and here's
too.
how we're gonna bring it there and make it work and fix the problems, make it taste good, sound good, look good, whatever.
Yeah, like I like creating stuff from the ground up, but for the most part, like it's a lot easier when someone says I have this idea, and you're like, oh, cool, like I know exactly what you want, and maybe I know how to make it even cooler than what you want. Excuse me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Remember back in the day, you used to have that like cough button that when you do radio shows.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? Nobody uses that anymore.
I think on Zoom you just hold down the space bar. Let me try this. Can you hear me? Could you hear that? You could hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
No, it didn't work. Fuck.
Well, whatever. Now, these days people don't give a shit because you have to turn out shit all the time. But back in the day in the radio, you used to be like, okay, if you're gonna cough, you hit this fucking button right here, or if you're gonna swear, I guess.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Can we swear? I've been swearing this whole time.
Well, so most of the things for these, I put this out for my Patreon. So every time I do a new one, then I release it to the public, but first to the Patreon so that they can get the first, listen and everything. So I've only done one of these with somebody, and I'm gonna put that out as like a, oh, okay. And if you like this episode, we have one with Mike Retondo coming out, and it's not only exclusively on my Patreon now until we do the next one.
Cool. My advice to all your Patreon patrons, whatever tier you're subscribed at, bump it up, a couple notches for dinner. One or two. Just
I can tell I picked the right guest today, haven't I? Okay, there's two more questions for you, Mike. And one is about your podcast. So we talked a lot about creation. We talked a little bit about me and my art and the way that you've consumed it. But I wanted to talk about your work that you're doing right now that I think you're really proud of. And I can tell by that you must be, because I listened to it. And you do it with my brother, who could not be a more perfect collaborative partner for you if you're going to do something. I know you, so I know you've started this podcast To the Bottom. I'm an avid listener and fan. You guys are in the early stages with it. I mean, I know you've done it maybe a year now, but you're still in the early stages, I think, figuring things out and getting guests in. But has it brought you joy? And if so, can you talk a little bit of why it matters to keep going with it?
So the podcast, for me, the whole idea kind of started coming out of the pandemic, and me and Eric both quit drinking. Maybe around the same time. I don't know. But either way, for two grown men to get together and have conversations with people when alcohol is taken out of the picture, sitting down at a bar or calling up a buddy, hey, I haven't seen you in a long time. Let's go get a drink. You have conversations, right? Without drinking, and after the pandemic, you kind of missed that anyway. But without drinking, it's a little weird. I don't know, for some reason, to be like, hey, yeah, you want to just sit in a room and talk for like an hour and a half or an hour or whatever. It's weird to call someone and make that.
Well, we don't have that crutch, which is the alcohol.
Yeah, without drinking,
feel better about the social environment.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I'm like, podcasts would be a great excuse to just get together with people that we want to talk to, even if we're not friends with them, people you want to get to know. Just sit down and talk. Basically, that's the whole idea. Eric, I think, takes it a lot more seriously than I do. I'm honestly just in it for the hang. And anything that comes from that like is kind of a bonus in my eyes. So, and it, we've had great guests, great interviews. Like the bonus has been a big bonus, but it always for me comes down to like, all right, who do I want to sit and talk to and find out their story,
Yeah. And you've like probably been able to relate to a lot of your guests or, have those human interactions that we're talking about, because it's all about creativity. With most of the guests that you've had, they're all artists in their own right.
Yeah.
So why does it matter to keep it going then? Maybe it doesn't.
I mean, it does because, it's fun. And like doing this with you, if you said, hey, Mike, let's get on a video call for a couple hours today with no podcast, I would have done it in a heartbeat.
Right.
It would have been awesome.
Yeah.
But we don't do that, do we?
No.
We should.
Yeah.
But we don't. How many people
I think it's more so about, like you said earlier, time,
Sure.
Yeah.
So, when you have something to deliver to the world, and it's cool to share our conversation with people that might be interested.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, look, I'm glad that you decided to take the time today. And again, wanting to share it. That's another part of this that's hard, I think, in my eyes, is like actually getting someone to say, oh, you said, are you going to do it with video? And I was like, God, what's the right answer here? That maybe he's going to say no. And then he's not going to want to be a guest.
No, I just wanted to know, do I need to make myself presentable?
Oh yeah.
Do I need to I had to set up my camera, that kind of thing. I had to hire the guy to.
Yeah. Do the video.
Bro, over here. Yeah. There you go. Okay.
Yeah. See, that's the shit too. It's like, obviously that's AI that's built in, that somebody figured out how to move around and stuff like that. That's helpful. Yeah. That keeps people engaged. Sometimes people talk about AI as is this detrimental thing to society? Well, it's it's a tool like anything else. I mean, we've been using AI for a long time. It's just how you use it,
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I love hearing about the podcast. I love listening. Everybody out there that is listening to this podcast, please check out To the Bottom. They're, I think, pretty much everywhere. And it's insightful conversations and two guys who keep it fun. And that sometimes is really important. I can be a little serious sometimes. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I need to work on my being serious.
Yeah. There's a yin and the yang to it, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so there's I want to tell a story at the end about you that I like. But before that, there's one more question, and this is totally up to you how you answer it. I think I know how you're going to answer it, but I like to ask it just because it's it makes us think about. I remember in The Artist, Inside the Actor's Studio. Did you ever watch that with James Lipton? And you ask that question, when you reach the pearly gates, what would you like God or St. Peter or whoever it is that greets you to say to you, And then that makes you think a little bit about your life. Like, what would you want people to know about? And so, yeah, artists live forever, right? That's something that I love because it's kind of like whatever you create lives in the world as long as it can, and even after you. But we don't live forever, right? So what would you like the life of your art to be after you're gone? Have you ever thought about that, or do you care?
I don't care. I'll be dead. I mean, that's where I'm at. I'll be dead.
Well, then why do it in the first place?
Because I'm alive now.
And you and you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that's recently Mike Tyson did this interview with this little kid when he was doing the Jake Paul thing. He's like, they said something about your legacy. And he's like, the fuck is a legacy? You're going to be dead. You're dust. Who gives a shit? I was like, yeah, every artist that's watching it is like, yeah,
Fuck yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to share one story about Mike. There's a million.
Hang on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go
ahead. You kind of loaded up a question earlier about something that I created. What was that? What was that going to be? Was that the podcast?
Well, no, I was saying about I love the side of you that my when I was thinking of, so I think about these questions about the person that I'm interviewing based on a lot of things, but the way into this was just about like the art that you've got from me, and then I like to kind of think about like you as an artist. So
I'm going back to the last question.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I answered about the bass, my kids.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm about to go there.
You said I have something that I think you're going to say.
And what I thought you were going to say was the food. I the spam things that you've been putting together. So I kind of went into it. Yeah, because I don't know. The reason I'm bringing this up about like thinking about the questions is that I was thinking about these yesterday and interviewing you. I thought, like, does Mike know that that there's a lot of creativity in what he's creating as far as the food stuff? And I think, to Liz's credit, she's done a lot of those little like snippets on Instagram or whatever, people to get to know you guys a little bit more like that. And that's one thing I've loved. I love the coffee with Damar. I like seeing him happy going to get his coffee, but I like the food thing with you. And then you guys played the Spam Museum, and I don't know if that was like a direct correlation to you like making things with spam.
No, that was just a happy accident.
Gotcha.
As Bob Ross would say.
Yeah. But that's what I love about you. And I didn't know if you as a person would have thought of that as like a creative endeavor. Because a lot of times I talk about cooking and how creative I feel like that is. And people are like, oh, yeah, I never, it's not a paintbrush. It's like, well, it's the same thing,
Yeah.
So that's what I was going to say.
Gotcha.
Okay. Cool. You ready for the story?
No, but go for it.
Okay, so again, there's a million stories I could share, and maybe we'll have you back on and talk about just the stories. But this one is one of my favorites, and I think it was like some like gimmick to get people out to a scissors show back in like 2006 or something, and it was on MySpace or whatever. And we got out, what I'm talking about right here. It's like we got out into the world that if you dress up like Santa Claus, you can get in for free to the show at the Brower House. We'd play there all the time. Yeah. And so Mike, I'm assuming you saw that message and took it pretty seriously. So we played this show at the Brower House. And the only person who comes dressed as Santa Claus is Mike Retondo. And it was something all these years later that I remember because it was so fun. And it was like to have an attitude where like you just went with it. You were in the crowd and you're fucking Santa Claus the whole time.
Well, dude, I thought everyone's going to be fucking Santa Claus.
I know.
And not only that, but I had to pay to get in.
So you didn't even
show up
get
in the
free
costume.
admission?
Like, no, dude, that was a joke. What are you doing?
Yeah.
We were kidding. But yeah, I saw that. I went straight to Party City. Spent, $40 on a fucking Santa costume. So, it was awesome.
Yeah, I guess I owe you dinner for that.
No, I would do it again.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, that's like the fun attitude that made that show fun, but also memorable. I mean, when I think about you, a lot of times I think about that story, and like, we wouldn't have had that, or I wouldn't have had that big smile every time I think about you had you not done that. So, it's a good thing.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Okay, well, hey, man, unless you have anything else you want to talk about, I think this has been a great conversation, and appreciate you taking your time to talk to me about it. I hope the questions weren't too off the wall.
No, pretty on the wall. Much like your artwork. Speaking of which, go buy Darren's artwork. We didn't even talk about, what else do I have? I've the pumpkin one.
Yes. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. I created that in a class with a bunch of people. We had a still life, and so that was the one, and then I think I put it up and Jen scooped it up.
Yeah, and we have
Jen, by the way, really been amazing with me and the support of the art that I've made. I really got to give her a huge hug when I see her next. And for everybody who's listening to this and not watching, as we zoomed out, we see all Mike's gold records on the wall, by the way.
Here, Jen gave me this one for my birthday.
Oh, Portillo's print, beautiful,
fucking amazing. I did pull it off of the wall.
By the way, when you guys were talking to Dan Wade, I was hoping he was going to mention this. But so when he did a Riot Fest last year, he gave me a comp ticket, me and my girlfriend a comp ticket. And so not that he needs to say anything about it, but I gave him a Portillo's gift certificate as like a thank you. And I would love one day to hear that he went out and got like uber amounts of like, cheese fries and everything, because that's like, in my opinion, the best way to say thank you to somebody is to give them the gift of Portillo's. So I'm glad I'm glad Jen gave you that poster.
Yeah. And then back there, I've got well, Stonehenge, the gourmet meal, right here.
Oh yeah, all gourmet meals turned to shit.
Got Yo
That's
Quiero
genius.
Taco Hell.
Yep.
That's your photo right there, right?
Oh yeah, the double door one.
Double
Yeah,
door.
that's like
Yep.
from 2004. I took that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so check it out. One other story, and just for anybody who gets to be on the podcast, you got to experience the art within the trailer because there is a devil taking a shit on a toilet that is like probably one of the greatest pieces of art, and I guarantee you thrifted that.
No, that was eBay.
Oh,
Believe it
eBay.
or not,
Yeah.
eBay.
So I thought
I
that
do
that piece
thrift
of
a
art
lot.
with the Taco Bell one would go nicely next to it.
Oh no, yeah, no shit.
Maybe like that place just becomes like a shitting,
Yeah,
a wall of art in there.
I should put that at least in the bathroom somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Or
gotta,
even the gourmet meals one would work nicely back there.
yeah, this is kind of like my friend's artwork section.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
That's a Dave Terrio original.
Oh, that's right. The spray paint of you,
Portrait
right?
of me, and
Yeah.
then Million Miler,
Yeah.
his missing poster, and then
Yeah.
that's about it. I don't know.
For people who can't see again, like the nice thing is it's mingled with a bunch of, again, gold records that
Yeah,
you have on
gold
the wall.
records, some Smoking Popes posters, some thrifted art. All these
Yeah.
these were thrifted, $5 a piece.
Yeah, when I was over at Tim's recently, I saw a bunch of his plaques for that stuff, and I'm always just blown away when I see
Yeah, there's more
all of that
hang on.
stuff.
More over
So,
here.
what are all those for? Can you give us a little insight into them?
I don't know. Let's see. UK Tour 2008. I don't know, commemorating the tour. There's what is that, a gold record for Hey There Delilah, the single. Another Hey There Delilah. What is that, triple platinum?
Wow,
I don't know.
is that better than gold, triple
Delilah.
platinum?
I don't know. You know, they send these things. They sat in my basement in a stack for about, I don't know, 10 years. And then just recently,
When
I
you
was like,
finally got your place, yeah.
yeah, I should hang these on the wall. That would look cool. But
I mean, here's the thing: when people talk about winning an Oscar, and people are like, "Where do you keep it?" It's like, "Oh, I keep it in a shelf, or I keep it in." It's like about what the work, right? It's like the achievement is in the works. But I imagine you're very proud of those because it reminds you of the good work you've done. Yeah.
I didn't write that song. I mean,
Yeah.
the Delilah ones, sure. I didn't write those. The other ones, I don't know. The work is like the fucking record. Put on the record and listen to it.
Yeah.
That's commemorating the work, really. These
Do you
things
go
are,
back and listen to those records that you made?
very rarely, but when I do, it's like, oh my God, such a journey.
Like, do you like it? Do
Yeah.
you enjoy that process? Yeah.
Yeah. Just picking out little, remembering the process of recording it and coming up with whatever parts and stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe for the 20-year anniversary, which is this year of All That We Needed, maybe you guys should do a podcast of like what it was like to make that record. That would be cool. I'll curate it.
Sure. I'm in.
All right.
I wasn't until you said that. Then I'm like, oh,
No,
we got something.
If Darren does the legwork, we're in. Yeah.
yeah, no, just the curating.
No, I know. Because I actually talked to Tom and Tim about an idea I had of I don't know, maybe the songs that you guys were inspired by at the time, maybe they could do like a couple like just acoustics, and like, how people collaborate on social media. Maybe like Weezer, for instance, would like accept the collaboration and it'd be like, okay, this song helped us and inspired us to write this song or something. I love that kind of stuff, like knowing more about that record, because when it's your favorite record, I think people want to know more. Sometimes like David Lynch would be like, I'm not going to give you anything about this and you have to just live with this art. It's yours forever. But in music, it's cool to know a little bit more of the backstory.
Yeah. Sometimes not though,
Well, you can't really say because you have to view it from the fans' point of view. People
Yeah.
will listen to it. You're the
There's-
one who created it.
Right. But even for different people, like Smoking Popes, right? Boom. Jen's a big Smoking Popes fan. I'm a big Smoking Popes fan. Josh Cater went on a podcast and talked about the song Megan, which is, one of the all-time greatest songs, in my opinion. Not even just among Pope songs. Beautiful song. Anyway, he talks about the lyrics and what inspired him to write it. And for me, I was like, oh, cool, awesome. Like, didn't change my love for the song at all. I think for Jen, she heard what he said, and I don't want to give it away necessarily. I don't know. The lyrics in the song, it's pretty deep. You know the song, right?
Yeah, I think I know a roundabout what it's about, like sitting on the tracks, and it's kind of like a little darker, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know. Should I spoil it for you?
Sure. We'll just say spoilers now. If you don't want to know what Megan by the Smoking Post is about, Mike's about to tell you.
He watched a movie, like kind of like an older sort of cheesy movie that if you look up the movie, I forget what it's called. Anyway, it's got nothing to do with like any like personal experience in Josh's life. It's like about this. Watched a movie, was inspired. This guy, man, I wish I could remember the name of the movie. I've never seen the movie, but
well, that's like what we were talking about earlier, just like stuff that inspires you, that makes you create something of yourself. And look at that. That's like case in point. Made this song that's beautiful, that doesn't need to be about, like, no one needs to really know that because they listen to that song and it means something to them, right? Like, but he knows I wrote that song about this crazy B movie that nobody's ever seen,
Yeah, but for Jen, she was kind of like, oh, huh. Yeah, that's not.
Like she would rather that it was a personal experience for him. Interesting.
Took it down a notch in her book.
Okay, so that's to your point. You're saying if you did the 20th anniversary podcast or whatever, some people might hear the real stories and be like, now I don't really like. It's kind of like meeting your heroes, right? And they're total dick to you, and you're like, well, fuck this now. I don't like this band anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why, people should never meet me.
Well, they just did. You just did a hour and a half podcast, and they just learned a lot about you, Mike.
Well, hopefully I wasn't a dick. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, maybe I just won't put it out then. No, I'm just kidding. No, now I own the exclusive rights. You're fucked. I'm gonna make T-shirts off of you. Your likeness, all the quotes in this. We're gonna just make millions off of you now.
Which, by the way, we need to do more.
I know,
but I don't know. My well has run dry. Maybe that's one right there about my well running dry, and I can come up with a visual. The wheels are turning.
That's kind of like when you watch The Simpsons and that one quote with Ned Flanders when he was like supposed to be like a beatnik. And he's like, oh man, he's like, I've done a whole lot of nothing and I'm all out of ideas. Yeah. So good. All right, man. Well, hey, think about some stuff. And you know me, it's easy to just put a pencil to paper. So I'm always game.
Cool.
All right. Yeah. I'll see you around, and look for this to be posted probably today if I find some time. I'm also working on some stuff. Again, just before we leave, these guys have introduced me into their management, who have trusted me with some of their artwork, who has led me to working on other things like the Cypress Hill art that I'm telling you, I would not have that job had it not been for you guys. I got to prove myself and everything, but I'm grateful for all of the success you've had because it's helped me in my life. I'm grateful. I'm happy for you, but I'm grateful that you have it so that I can continue to work. So thank you for allowing me to do that.
Grateful to have you doing it. Man. It's always great. I don't know. It's like there's people out there that can make T-shirts.
Yeah.
And an album art, whatever. It's nice when your friends can do it, A. But B, like, we have other friends that could do it.
Right. Anybody could always get that job, right? Yeah. Why am I perfect for the job?
Great. Right.
Yeah.
And so many times we'll get some T-shirt designs. I don't know where they come from for whatever tour we're doing, and then a couple of years, and it's like without even knowing who did what or whatever, yours gets picked, and it's like ends up being the best seller on the tour.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean.
Just always go out there, and
Well, yeah, but then you got to have the, like you said, sometimes the bad ideas, or you got to have the slice of life in there that's someone different. Like if somebody wanted to hire me for the job, they would know what they're getting. That's kind of been my mantra of the last few years. Is like, okay, I want to be the artist that you're going to get Darren Varel when you create that. So you kind of have to know ahead of time that like I'm not just going to do whatever you want to do, but I'm going to like do it in my way. And of course, I'll work with you in a million different ways you want to, but you need to know that the style you're going to get is mine. I guess that's
Yeah.
the point. And you got to work towards that. So it's not
Yeah.
easy, but every time I do something for you guys, I also want to show you more than what you're expecting to give me, because I want you to find that one that's perfect for you. And then, yes, I want you to go on tour and sell the shit out of it so you guys make money. What does it matter to hire me if you don't make money back,
Right.
to keep going?
Yeah.
So we can continue doing this. All right. Well, with that,
Oh yeah.
thanks, Mike. Signing off. And yeah, put me on to the bottom again. Marianne listened to the final episode of that last night, and she's like, man, I'm so glad I got to be a fly on the wall for your guys' exploits. So check, everybody that's listening, check out To the Bottom Pod, and of course the Plain White Tees and TLB and the Scissors as we move on through the years.
Hell yeah.
Okay. Talk to you soon, Mike. Take care, you
dude.
guys. Thanks for listening.
See ya.